Bridget, I can't tell you how pleased I am that you're here. This is Bridget Blum, and she's the Director of Human Resources, Training and Development, and also the Corporate Compliance Officer. Did I miss anything?
You did not. That's correct. Thank you so
Okay.
much for having me.
It's just such a delight. We love our staff. I think I speak for a lot of us, and almost all of us, really have a very warm feeling for the staff, and we really appreciate them. And then to have you here to tell us about how you got them and helped them. It's just wonderful. I'm thrilled. Well, let's start with like recruiting.
Jump right in.
Now,
Okay.
what positions do you recruit for? Would you be did you recruit for Michelle when she was hired? Or who do you, what groups of people do you recruit for?
So the first part of the question that I'll answer is I did not recruit for Michelle's position because she actually was working here before I did. So she was in a different role and capacity at the time, but Michelle does predate me here at Woodland Pond. But in terms of what positions we do recruit for, it would be any vacancy that is a Woodland Pond vacancy. And we have very few that are not Woodland Pond vacancies. For example, the Sodexo dietitian, the dining services director, executive chef, and a couple of the chef managers in the kitchen would not be Woodland Pond positions that we would recruit for. Otherwise, any position that belongs to Woodland Pond that is vacant.
Okay, so you're filling both hourly and non-hourly salaried.
Yes, hourly and salaried positions.
Okay.
Yeah. And certainly, there's a challenge with recruiting for both hourly and salaried positions.
Yeah, I'm curious about the method you use.
Sure. So we do all of our advertising and recruitment online. Everything is done online. We have a number of job boards that we post to. We use an applicant tracking system. That's what it's called. So it's a system that has our job application. It stores the applicant's information. It categorizes. It allows us to put all of our jobs out there with their job descriptions, and all the details of the job itself go right into this applicant tracking system. It's a nice way to organize things. Long gone are the days of paper applications.
I was just going to ask you, there's no newspaper ads anymore?
No newspaper ads anymore. There's just not readership.
Right.
When you advertise with the newspaper, even if we were to contact, say, the Daily Freeman to do an ad, they would put it in their online ad. They would recommend that because they just know readership of a physical paper is really down, especially for those types of positions. We do advertise with a local site. Many people have probably heard of it. It's called HudsonValleyHelpWanted.com. They do radio spots quite frequently. So if you're ever driving in the car, you might hear, a catchy little ad, and then they'll promote themselves, HudsonValleyHelpWanted.com. So that's one of our primary sources for the folks who apply for positions here, because people are familiar with that site. So they will search. Most people are just Google searching CNA New Paltz, and up will come our ads because of our job board postings. So it's nice. And then everything, like I said, is housed in this applicant tracking system, and we can very easily get the resumes into the hands of the hiring managers because they're all done electronically.
I've been noticing lately that there's a greater diversity, racial diversity in the staff. The kind of thing you might notice visually when you don't know them well. And I was wondering how you've managed to diversify the staff.
We don't do any particular diversity scouting or recruiting. We really pull from our organic diversity in the community. And I think that with the university here in town, that lends to a certain amount of diversity of the folks who would be coming, to work here. Certainly in the dining department, that's where we see the highest number of university students. But the diversity at Woodland Pond is truly organic to our geographical area. We
I
don't
think
do any special measure.
you mentioned to me once that staff referrals have been a good source. Is that?
Wonderful, wonderful source of recruitment. It's probably where we've had our biggest return on investment in terms of getting the employees the opportunity to be eligible for a recruitment bonus or a referral bonus is what we call it. We find that the best candidates are going to be brought forth by the folks that we already know and love,
Right.
and that we have here working, and we know make all of you folks so happy. And we hope that they have friends that are similar to them, and certainly the people that they're going to recommend. What we found is that they typically have a similar work ethic and those kinds of things. So the best draw is going to come from the folks that we have here who are committed, who love Woodland Pond, because they really are going to, put forth their best recommendation. And the fact that they're rewarded for it is certainly a bonus.
I have a question about the reward. So are they rewarded if one of their referrals is hired, or are they rewarded simply if the referral comes in for an interview?
So they're rewarded only if the individual is hired for the
Okay.
position.
Makes sense.
But the referral bonuses are unlimited, so they can refer 10 people, and 6 of them could be hired, and then they would be eligible for all those bonuses. So the fact that it's unlimited is really what is a nice draw, because not everybody that everyone refers is going to get hired, certainly, but there's certainly no maximum to the number of people that you can refer.
Right.
And they are paid in increments, so there is a little bit of longevity built into it. So obviously the goal is to have the individual stay. So the bonus for the referral is paid out over time.
Okay, how long?
It differs depending on the position. In a lot of cases, it could be after 90 days, after 180 days, and then at 1 year. It could be after 30 days, after 60, after 90, and then at 1 year. Each position, depending on what we're recruiting for, could be a little different, but we always have a referral bonus.
Mhm.
So we have what's called a universal referral bonus. And then if it is a critical vacancy, or we're finding it to be hard to fill, there's been a number of times where we've even increased the recruitment bonus or the referral bonus based on a certain position, and we've sort of sweetened the deal for a staff member. So if they could always get 1,000 for referring anybody to any position, if we're in a time of crisis and we really need, say, a CNA, it's potential that they could be getting $3,000 for a referral. So we use it, sort of as a recruitment tool. Exactly.
That's a
what it's meant for.
substantial bonus.
It is. It is.
Yeah, it really is. Do you hire people who are under 18?
We do. So we begin our hiring at 16. Many folks ask if we hire at 14, and we just don't. We're not able to here. There's really not any positions that we can offer. 16 is the minimum age.
You say 16?
16 is the minimum age, and customarily that's in the dining department. That's where most of our folks who have been 16 have worked. And then, from there, one of the other areas where we can hire folks, young is as a CNA. So what some of you may or may not know is that the BOCES program does have a CNA component to it. And in high school, students can earn their certified nursing assistant certification. So they could be graduating at 17 years old from high school as a CNA, but we are not able to hire them until they're 18 for the simple fact that mandation is a part of being a CNA, a minimum standard. And unfortunately, some work rules could prohibit them from being able to be mandated because of age.
Mhm.
So we have to be a little careful there. It doesn't happen that frequently where we have people, we've never had someone who's, been denied employment because they were under 18. It's just one of those things that we would have to really look at timing wise. But
When is the reference check made? At what stage?
so the reference check is done after a candidate has been identified. So we receive an application, it goes to the hiring manager, they make their candidate selections, they do their interviews. And then once they select their individual that they want to make a job offer to, that's when, reference check is done.
Okay, okay.
And reference check, is calling or contacting, previous employers, the individual that they indicate as their reference. But that's separate and aside from all of the background checking and screening that we do, which is also all done pre-hire.
Uh-huh. Okay. I think you just said a little bit, but who makes the actual hiring decision?
Yeah, so when people, and it happens often at the town halls where, residents will stand up and say, we just love the staff that you bring to us. Thank you so much. And I always say, and I'm humbled to say, and I remind folks that each department does their own recruiting. So we are the keeper of the applicant tracking system, and we do the onboarding when the candidate has been identified, and those types of things. But truly, the each department has a designated hiring manager, or a couple of designated folks who do the interviewing and the hiring decisions. And so, I cannot take credit for that. The departments really source their candidates and make their hires. So that's how it's done here.
This is less pleasant, but what is HR's role in discipline?
So discipline, we have a progressive counseling and discipline policy, and it is very prescriptive. It is part of the corporate policies for Woodland Pond. So as with all of the organization policies or corporate policies, they sort of live with HR. So the policy itself is, as I said, very prescriptive, and at certain levels, I need to be included in the process. But am always available to consult and to opine on disciplinary actions and those kinds of things. Because the goal of discipline, though it's not pleasant, it is not punishment, it is to teach. And that is my true belief. That is what I encourage when directors are having the counseling sessions. We don't ever want to punish folks. We want to teach them what is the appropriate thing to do in certain situations, and what our expectations are. And that should be very clear. It should be known. We should have our standards very clear. Staff should understand what's expected of them. And so that when comes the time that, some rule or policy is violated, it's more of a counseling session or teaching session to say, okay, this is what's happened, and this is how we're going to, move on from it, and not have it happen again in the future. Here's how we're going to avoid, that same pitfall next time. So, unfortunately, sometimes because it's progressive, the individuals fail to really understand or take seriously or sort of get it. And so, it could result in further progressive counseling and whatnot. But, really the goal is to nip it in the bud and to have that initial session and really help the employee to understand what our expectation is.
How do you generally support administrators? And in general, you're there, and I bet you get calls.
I do. I like to be involved. I like to be included, even if it's just as a matter of, mutual respect or just keeping me in the loop. I certainly don't ever want to hear about something after the fact or have a staff member come to me all upset about something that happened and be completely in the dark. It's just not fair to me for
Mhm.
that to happen. It's not fair to the employee for that to happen. And so I would like to be involved. I don't mind being involved in certain situations or in all types of situations. And I do find greater success when I am involved, from the beginning.
Mhm.
Because certainly my intent is to ensure that we reduce the risk to Woodland Pond as much as possible. I mean, that's just always in the back of my mind. And it's again, one of the things that I strive to really ensure is that we manage ourselves in the least risky way as possible, and to make sure that we are not exposing ourselves to potential claims for, wrongful terminations
Mhm.
or, just anything that could be brought
Right.
against us. So, keeping me involved is always, a benefit. And, certainly whatever I can do to support the other folks and my colleagues, however I can be a resource to them.
I believe you mentioned another way that you help administrators when we were talking earlier, and that's keeping them informed, the laws and the regulations.
Sure, definitely a component there. However, we are also each discipline or each director here, we have different trade groups for our industry. So, I have a human resources and legal trade group. We have leading age, and they have, all of the information related to what really guides the health center. And, we have the CCRC group, and, each arm of Woodland Pond, each arm of our leadership has a really reliable trade organization that we are partners with or members of. And so we feed each other information constantly. When someone gets something across our email, it's generally sent out to the whole leadership team or just to the executive directors as an FYI. There's no silos when it comes to sharing that kind of information. It's, there's value in it to go to everybody. It doesn't necessarily mean that you have to do anything with it or act on it in any way, but just having the information and having the knowledge is what's important. And that's what we do. So we do rely a lot on our trade organizations. We also have, of course, corporate legal team that we are able to consult with and do regularly. And, again, there's info sharing there.
Right.
So when new laws are passed, regulations come out, we're kept well informed.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay. That can, is that what it means to be the corporate compliance officer? Or does that also refer to residents?
So corporate compliance, that's ensuring that all of the regulatory requirements and guidelines and those kinds of things are being met, followed. We're not breaking any, laws in any way, and we're not operating, ineffectively or risky and doing bad business practice. But yeah, I mean, the information and legal changes and sharing that information has really nothing to do with the corporate compliance piece. That is everybody's responsibility in leadership here.
Mhm. Okay. Okay.
Oh, I think we have a question. I don't know if we.
I guess to some degree you've answered it. HR's role in termination. How are terminations handled?
So
If you ever have any, maybe you don't.
No, we do. Unfortunately, I think that's just a fact of life here in this role. And again, it's something that I have to be involved in. We just have to protect ourselves to ensure that we don't expose ourselves, leave ourselves open to, potential trouble. And, you're never 100% protected because of course, at the end of the day, anyone can say or do anything, but, keeping me informed, keeping me part of the process, especially in terminations, that's actually a requirement here. Yeah,
I
have
should
to
think
be
the
involved.
employee would feel better too. Once in a while, an employee will feel it's all personal and things like that. And to have HR's involvement, I should think they would welcome.
Sure. And when it comes to the actual act of carrying out a termination, so it's important that you just mentioned that, because my role is with the, department or the director leading up to the preparation for, or the decision to, separate an employee. And then the manager, director, leader of the department, whomever it is the one who actually carries out the act of that
Okay.
meeting.
Okay.
I don't typically take part in those meetings directly because at the same time, I have to be the resource to the employee.
Right.
Should they come around the corner after the fact and say, I'm upset about my termination for A, B, and C.
Right.
So I don't participate in the actual separation meeting.
Mhm.
And I am available to the staff member after the fact. But again, having me involved in the process to lead up to the termination is helpful because then, it makes my discussion with the employee much stronger when they come to see me, because I can point out to them directly all of the reasons that, this particular decision was made. I can let them know that I was informed in the process, that I am aware of the situation,
Right.
those kinds of things.
Right.
So it just, it sits better for Woodland Pond that I'm not sitting in my office saying, oh, you were terminated. I had no idea what happened. I've already been given all of that information and have helped to come to the determination along with the manager.
Okay. Not every human resources office handles the payroll, but you do. And can you explain your role in the payroll?
Sure. So, small organization, everyone wears many hats, including the employees. So the employees are actually responsible for approving all of their own time cards, which means that they clock in, they clock out every day, they review their punches, and they actually now recently are required to actually click approve. So right from the start, the employee is involved in the payroll process, as they should be. It's their time, they're clocking in, they're clocking out, it's their paycheck. So, the importance of having them involved, it's a transparent process. They're involved in it right from the start. Then we call them schedulers or timekeepers, would give, every time card a review and ensure that everything looks correct. Employees can't just put whatever hours they want to on their time card. They need to use the timekeeping system to clock in and clock out so that it's, time stamped for them. If they make a mistake or an error, they have to request a change or a modification. And that's where the timekeeper comes in to.
Okay, this timekeeper is in the
approve those.
department?
It is. It's the person
Okay.
who typically is responsible for the scheduling, because
Okay.
they know when their staff are scheduled and that kind of thing. So
Okay.
it's the scheduler or the designee for the department, and we sort of label them, the timekeepers.
Got it.
So they would give a second review of those time cards for accuracy, that kind of thing. And then ultimately, once that's all done, Human Resources and specifically Joanne Kolkman, the HR coordinator, is the one who processes payroll. So, make sure that all of the information is in there. We have a lot of extra stuff. For example, all of these bonuses that we talked about, they have to be manually put in, any adjustments or changes, or just a whole number of different things that could come up, that have to be done as part of payroll. She handles all of that and then ultimately does the process to ensure that people receive their pay. So that's the important part. That's what everyone waits for.
Right. I want to ask you about benefits,
Yeah.
how they're managed, what benefits there are for which groups of employees.
Okay, so benefits, we do have, all of our health benefits, medical, dental, vision. We have a whole host of supplemental benefits. We have our group term life policies. We have our accidental death and dismemberment and long-term disability policies. So all of the benefits are managed by our broker, our benefits broker, Rosen Kiernan. Rosen Kiernan just last year.
But Human Resources deals with them.
Yep, I'll talk about it. So Rosen Kiernan is our broker, and they have a proprietary system for which all of the information lives. It lives in a computer system. And just last year, Rosen Kiernan became part of NFP, who is actually one of the leading benefit providers in the nation. So they're a part of a much larger network and organization. So here at Woodland Pond, through our broker and our benefits system that they provide to us, we offer the different plans that we choose to employees who are 0.8 or greater, which means that they must work 30 hours or more per week. And anyone who meets that standard is eligible for the medical, dental, vision, group term life at no cost to them, and long-term disability. And then from there, as I said, they can pick up any of the supplemental policies that we offer and all of those different, we have accident insurance, we have critical illness, we have hospital indemnity insurance, just so many different kinds of insurances, but it's a simple process. It's, again, all computer-based, and it's really nice because you can go on, you can look at the benefit, you can read a whole description about it. It's an interactive site, so it will show you a video. When you're making your elections, there's toggles, so you can say, if I want this much, and my age is this is what it's going to cost me. So it's a nice interactive site where employees can learn all about the benefits and then, see exactly which ones.
Is there
they wanna
assistance to
pick.
them in doing this, or?
There is, if they need it.
Okay.
Certainly, again, we would be happy to help someone go through that process, but it is designed in a way that you go through this screen, you click next, you go to this screen, you click next. So it's kind of a very standard and simplistic process. It's a lot of reading. It's probably way more information than some people even want, but it's nice because it's there if you want to take a look at it all.
Is there some shared cost? In other words, the employee has to pay some of the medical. That's been the case with a lot of employers.
Sure. So Woodland Pond has historically supplemented or subsidized around or just greater than 80% of the cost, which is really unprecedented anymore. You're finding, of course, with the rising costs of benefits, which they just go up every year and up every year. Finding an employer that will subsidize that much is really unusual. And we're fortunate that we are still able to do that. And for us, it is a huge recruiting tool, to really, it is important. It is important that we are able to maintain that because for those, especially those harder to fill positions and, maybe some more of the salary type positions, that's a really critical benefit to be able to say, we subsidize you at about 80%.
Is there a job classification system? I mean, you already have set job titles and so forth in the different departments.
Yes, definitely. There are, every department has its leadership team. And then from there, they have identified different positions, what those roles are. We have very comprehensive job descriptions. All of the job descriptions are in the applicant tracking system that I was talking about earlier, so that when a job is posted and a candidate is applying, they can see right then and there what the requirements are of the job, that kind of thing. So we have our job descriptions posted. Some of the job description for every position is standardized. There are certain things like the, the conformance statement and that kind of thing that are universal to all job descriptions. And then, each one has its job functions, the critical job functions. And we actually identify not only all of the job functions, but we identify which ones are the critical job functions. So it's it's a nice
So that allows for
template.
flexibility.
It does. It allows for flexibility. And with every turn of a job, when certain roles turn over, we will look at the job description and say, does this still stand? Is this exactly what it needs to be?
Oh,
And-
so you check that every time there's an opening.
Well, so we make changes every time that we feel that there needs to be a change. So
Okay.
not just for like the positions that routinely get filled, like wait staff and,
Right.
and, dietary aid and CNA, they don't get changed every time there's a job opening.
Right.
They get changed every time we need to. And that could be, once a year, it could be
Mhm.
more frequently, it can be whenever we need to. The other positions, some of the roles, maybe that it's a position filled by only one individual. When, it's not a position that we have multiple of,
Right.
that's when we really take a look. And it's because a lot of the jobs here at Woodland Pond, because we're a small organization, one job wears many hats. And we
Right.
want to make sure before we refill a vacancy that that individual or that job still requires all of the different things that we have in there.
Mhm.
So, it's always a work in progress, and we are not hesitant to make changes.
Mhm.
And, really, it's for the best operation of Woodland Pond. We want to make sure that we're as efficient as we can be, where we need to be. And so, making those changes in the job description is definitely one of the ways that we can do that. And we don't hesitate to do so.
Uh-huh. Well, a system is so very important for fairness.
Yes.
And one
Yes.
job related to another, and one person's pay related to another person's pay.
And we
They're
actually did
absolutely
that.
critical, but you need your flexibility too.
Mhm. Yep. And we
Um,
did that just a couple of years ago. We did a massive overhaul of every job description, in
oh,
fact.
okay.
And we identified, who the person was going to be
When you
back
say
up
we,
to.
did you bring in a consultant to do that, or
No,
you did
no.
it, your office?
The departments all did it. Each department was
department.
responsible for their department.
Okay.
Everyone looked at their job descriptions and said, I can't tell you the most efficient way to run any department here at Woodland
Right.
Pond, other than my own, right? So the departments were responsible to look at their job descriptions and say, okay, this is what we need to do, and this is how, they need to be structured. And if there were changes to be made, we made them. Some departments required very little change, those kinds of things. But what we identified was who the individual was going to be back up to, and who was going to back them up, so that we could cross-train folks for the different positions, so that when there's a vacancy or an opening, people aren't standing around with their hands in the air saying, oh, well, we only had one person who knew how to do that.
Mhm.
Nobody else can do it. That's not effective. So yeah, we actually, and that's right in the job description now.
Very nice.
Yeah, that
Very nice.
was a big project.
Very good. All right, I want to see if there's anything more that I haven't asked you about that you think ought to be in this discussion.
I think that we covered everything, certainly, that I was expecting that we would talk about. I personally want to just say that I am never wondering, the residents at Woodland Pond are so wonderful, and I'm never left wondering how they feel about the staff, because you all are just so gracious and, constantly complimentary. So, I, on behalf of the staff, I know how much they appreciate it. We see it every day through the applause program. Applauses get filled out for staff, and we love to read them.
Well, the employee appreciation.
Well, the Employee
Fund.
Appreciation Fund, forget it. That's, a whole nother story. But, reading the applauses is really important for me to see just how much the
Right.
residents appreciate the staff. And I know that, and you make it very well known. And so, I can tell you that it means a lot. It means a lot to the staff, because when you ask people their favorite thing about working at Woodland Pond, it's generally the residents. So
Oh,
thank
well,
you.
that's nice to know.
Yeah.
Is there a question in the audience there, Betsy?
A question about training. You're part of the training, and it's a two-part question: how you train employees and your own background training.
Sure. So the training is, done. We have a couple of different parts to the training per se. We have a general orientation that covers a lot of the regulatory and required topics for the part of our organization that has standards. So we have to train, a certain amount of time every year on fire safety and a certain amount of time every year on, different topics. So everybody, regardless of where at Woodland Pond you work, receives this orientation, it's called. And then from there are a number of different programs that are in our computer-based training module that employees train on, and different topics get assigned to different classes of employees. Some topics, again, are assigned to all employees. Some are only assigned to certain employees that they may pertain to. For example, if the topic is infection control in laundry, only the person responsible for laundry is going to receive that training. So we do use computer-based training. We have our live general orientation once per month. Each of the leadership directors will present at the topic that is most relevant to their area. And so live orientation, computer-based training, and then training as needed for, when certain things come up, in servicing on topics. Certainly we didn't used to do anything training related to coronavirus. We used to do infection control, but now infection control is still being taught, but there is a very specific, COVID protocol process for infection control. So, training is always growing and changing. Certain situations lead to expanded training. And we also have department-specific training. So when an employee starts on their unit or in their department or in the dining room, they receive their on-the-job training. What does the duties and responsibilities of the position actually entail? And so they work with a preceptor or a training buddy or, whatever the department calls it. And they really learn the on-the-job type training and what's required. What does a CNA at Woodland Pond do in their shift? And so there's many, many different ways that we train and we offer training to the staff. So, yeah.
Well, Bridget, I want to thank you for our staff. Thank you very
Oh.
much.
Thank you. Thank you. It's a pleasure. And thank you for having me.
It's been delightful.
Great.
What is your own background? You want to talk about that? Okay, never mind. Very, very good.